And welcome, everyone, to another edition of Magic Pod Squad. Dante Marcatelli, George Galante, Jake Chapman, and Carlos Arroyo, former Magic player, now the general manager with Team Puerto Rico, doing a fantastic job building that team. Carlos played 9 NBA seasons from 2001 to 2011, 3 here in Orlando from 2005 to 2008. And Carlos, is this right? I knew you had played, I knew you had a long career overseas, but I think you stopped playing professionally about 6 months ago. I have you down.
I mean,
It says 1996 to 2019. That's a heck of a career. That's a heck of a career, my friend.
it's been a long journey, but a great one. I mean, if the big three, counts as part of my
Yes.
career as a professional, yes.
Well, it's always great to see you, Carlos. We appreciate you doing this. Long overdue to catch
Thank
up,
you.
but kind of let everybody know what you're up to now. I know between running Team Puerto Rico, between following your daughters around and their volleyball career, I mean, I don't know how you have time for anything else.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to, be able to stay on my feet, as you can say. I mean, and do little things here and there. I have the flexibility of not being at a job, and committed to a job 100%. I like to, be with the national team as well as, following my girls around with volleyball. My oldest she's already in college, and I got the 2 little ones at the house. And and the national team itself, it's a 24/7 job throughout the year. With qualifiers that we have with FIBA and recruiting and all that stuff. So, I try to stay pretty busy. I've done music here and there. And, I was able to, be a part of a movie, that came with the music. So those doors open for me. Just trying to take advantage of, the things that I did when I was playing and the doors that are opening now. And I've been blessed, to be honest with you.
Guys,
Hold on,
he's being modest. He's
yeah.
being modest. He says music here and there. He's a music sensation.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
We can't gloss over. You're just like, I do some
Exactly.
music. Like we can't get into that a little bit now. We can't just gloss over the music part of this.
I mean, it was always a passion of mine. I never had the time because I was always traveling when I was in the league and when I was in Europe. So, and just producing music takes a long time. You have to be in the studio for so many hours. I mean, I had kids at home that I had to go to. My wife, on the other hand, when are you coming home? When are you coming? You retire. You should be here. So you go through all those ups and downs of being retired and finding yourself, and seeing what fits better once you're done playing. But for the most part, my family supports everything I do, so it's been a blessing.
Now, do they get to come on? Like, because we're doing this podcast right now, and you're in Chile right now.
Yeah.
Like, do they get to come on some of these excursions with you? I mean, you're trotting all over the world still.
Not really. Yeah, we were, and we had the World Cup this summer. We were in Philippines, and we had all those exhibition games before the World Cup, leading to the World Cup. So we were in Italy, Serbia, and all these places, but not really. My girls, they do travel ball in the summer, and throughout the year they do clubs. They have the club seasons, and now my oldest, she's in Dayton, Ohio. She got a scholarship to play volleyball over there, so she's over there going through her freshman year. And then my 2 little ones are in school and they have their own activities. So my wife's always, she's the one, she's the Uber driver at the house when I'm not there. So, but, I like, I love taking my kids to school. I love that part of being a father as well. I missed so much when I was playing and traveling that, I'm just trying to catch up with those times that I missed.
Carlos, what appealed to you about producing music when you got started? How did it sort of take you away from the grind of being a pro basketball player?
What pushed me to do music was, at the time I retired, the music business was just growing so fast, especially the reggaeton, the Latin urban music. And, I said, you know what? I have a great relationship with all these artists. Why don't I, try to find a label that can support the vision that I have with the project that I wanted to do, and maybe I can make some money. And it went like that. It wasn't easy, but I thank God for basketball every day because of the relationships that I built, because of the respect that I got for the years that I played in the national team and in the NBA. A lot of those guys, we built relationships, and I'm friends with most of these guys. So. But it wasn't easy, that in the music industry, especially when you're trying to do a collab, you have to be after guys constantly, to jump on a track or, find time to do a video or, because their schedules are so different than, athletes. And they don't have no time discipline when it comes to going to the studio. They might tell you, I'll be there at 8 and they show up at 12. You know what I'm saying? But you're the one that won the feature, so you have to kind of like,
right.
You have to suck it up and and grind.
George doesn't feel bad because he's been chasing around NBA players for 25 years, so he knows exactly what you're talking.
Right, George.
I do not feel bad. Now you know about the sit around and wait part of this, right? Right. We always like to tell each other. It's like, we spend a lot of time sitting around and waiting.
Well, athletes, as you know, George and Dante, as you know, if we have practice at 10, we probably there at 9.
True,
right?
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And artists, they're not like that. They might not show up. And I'll tell you why they didn't show up. So their schedule is just very, mixed.
Is it different on a movie set? Did you enjoy that experience? I imagine those things have to happen like clockwork when you set up to shoot a movie.
That was great. That was one of those experiences where, you're in a situation where you've never been, music. Yeah, I've been doing music since I was a kid, and I, with my friends back home in Puerto Rico, but, being on a movie set, everything is by the clock. Everything is very disciplined, structure, call up at 5 a.m. You have somebody there at 4:30 already waiting on you to get, to the studio to do makeup and all that stuff. And when they say, action is action, at whatever time they tell you, it's more structured than the music business.
I want to get into this, Carl. We know it because we had you here for 3 years, and it was a fun 3 years here in Central Florida. It was fun for us to get to know you, and I know it was fun for the fans. A lot of Puerto Rican fans here in Central Florida, so I know they loved having you here, and I know you enjoyed your time here as well. But let everybody know your basketball journey. Ultimately, you get to the NBA, but your story and to make it and to be an NBA player and to have the career you had is fascinating, and it's a credit to the hard work that you put in.
Thank you so much. I think most Latinos know my journey, but I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I turned pro when I was 16. My father wanted me to turn pro when I was 16. Back then, you can still play in college, and I could still play in the NCAA and go back home and make some money and be a pro and be a part of Division I basketball, which it was my dream. I wasn't drafted. I had a pretty solid senior year, and I got invited to some vet camps. We decided to go with the Toronto Raptors. That opened the doors for me that first year. So I went to vet camp, them having 15 guaranteed contracts, which I told my agent, I don't know what I'm doing here because, there's no way I can make the team. I did well enough for them to open a spot for me and give me a non-guaranteed contract. So I was with them until like half of the season. And then I went to Spain that first year, played a month there, finished the season with Denver. They got me a 10-day contract. And after that, I signed with Utah. And then I was, and I think from Utah, I went to Detroit. And then that's where I ended up in Orlando. But I mean, my journey's been one of those journeys that you say, where's he going to end up next? But I really learned and appreciated every coach that I had, every teammate that I had. I played with some great players. I was fortunate enough when I was in Orlando my first year, I was with Grant, and Stacey Augmon and all those guys, Dwight in his peak. So I was blessed. My whole career. I learned a lot from every organization that I was a part of. And even when I went to Europe, it was a moment where in Europe where I was like, can I do this? Because it's just different culture-wise. It hits you when you go to Europe. It's not for everyone. So I had to adapt, even though I was playing in the national team and I understood FIBA rules and the way they played, it was totally different from the NBA. But playing with the national team, it helped me adapt better. But I still had to get adjusted with, the food and the language and the culture. And it was just, it was just difficult at times. I was there by myself most of the times. My family, went with me. My first year in Europe was in Israel. So I told my wife, that's when I had my first daughter. And I told them, I'm going to go first to see how it is and everything, get settled, and then I'll bring you guys over. The same when I went to Turkey, and my last year was with the Barcelona in Spain. But, the treatment and the care that, they gave me was amazing, was first class at all times. I always felt that I was in a situation where I was going to be successful. and have an opportunity to play my game, which I missed. I feel like one of the years in the NBA that I really felt like I was playing my game and I was really happy on getting ready for games and traveling and stuff was with Orlando, to be honest with you. I get to play minutes. Brian gave me an opportunity from the start when I got to Orlando, and and I was able to showcase part of my game that I wasn't able to showcase when I was with the other teams. Aside from I felt like I was in Puerto Rico when I played in Orlando, as you guys remember. It was full of flags, and it was just an amazing experience. And I felt that every time I went to Orlando with other teams. Every time I felt, I felt like I was in Puerto Rico, people coming and supporting. As you guys know, the Puerto Rican community in Orlando is amazing and growing. So, my journey's been a special one, and I truly miss it. Sometimes I miss it. I don't miss the grind of it, waking up and training and all that stuff. But I miss the locker room, and the group of people I met throughout my journey, and basketball in general just given me a life that I can't complain. I've been truly blessed.
That's awesome, Carlos.
Carlos, before we get into some of your Orlando teammates, because you were here right when some of those guys were just starting to pick, the Dwights and the Jamirs. You played with John Stockton for the last 2 years of his career. What was it like playing with a guy? I mean, because I went back and looked just to see, let me see how many games he played in his John Stockton. And he started all 82 and played 31 minutes the last year while you were there. I mean, what was it like I mean, that was one of your first stops in the NBA, ended up being with one of the arguably greatest point guards ever to play in the
NBA. What's funny? John was the starter and the backup was Mark Jackson. So I was behind the number 1 and number 2 assist leaders in the history of the game. So that
incredible.
That year for me was a clinic the whole year. I was just watching them, how they prepared for games, how they saw the game. I was asking a lot of questions. But that truly helped my game mature at a professional level. But John was very quiet, and I would just watch him, and at times I would ask him questions what he saw in pick and roll situations, how to manage, the time when he's in the game, when the game was on the line, fourth quarters, decision making and stuff like that. He was just a true master, man. He was. His mind, and then it doesn't matter. You can never pressure him. It's like kind of like watching Luka. You can have a guy pressure him 90 feet, but he's gonna go his own speed. So that's what I like about John. And every drill, he took it personal. If we were running 17s, he'll make sure he was the first one. Just to prove that he's not old. But he was a true professional, man. I can honestly say I was the last substitution for John Stockton, in Sacramento. I was the guy that brought him out and subbed him out.
That's awesome.
Coach Sloan, asked me to sub him out, and he came out. And I think it was the playoffs in Sacramento. But that moment in itself, I would take with me forever because, me going in there and giving him a high five and give him kind of like a little hug after he walked out. The last time he walked out of the court, that was a truly special moment for me.
Well, the guy that replaced John, that's an answer to a trivia question. After 19 years of starting point guard, the guy that replaced him as the starting point guard the next year was this man, Carlos Arroyo, right? And maybe probably the best statistical year of your NBA career, that year starting in Utah.
Absolutely. I remember, I had a lot of pressure from the media back then because they were, you're the next one. Are you ready to, take on that responsibility, and I said, look, I'm only here to take advantage of the opportunity, just like John did when he was given that opportunity. So, but it was a lot of pressure. Sure. I can honestly say that mentally I was trying to prepare myself to not mess it up, and but I had a structured team, with Jerry Sloan. He was very determined with doing things right. Very disciplined with his structure and how he wanted us to play. And as you guys know, Jerry doesn't mess around, and he's the same at practice, at shoot around, and games. He's the same way. So, and it helped my game, to be honest with you, trying to, just stay in line with what I needed to do as a point guard and as a young point guard too, trying to find myself. I knew that first year that gave me the ball and said, run the team, I knew that, I needed to be focused and have my best season.
Carlos, if that was your best year, your second best year, I would think statistically was that 06-07 season here. You mentioned some of your teammates. That was my intern year. So quick personal story. I was the radio intern. I had to hold the mic after practice, after at shoot arounds. And you guys were such a great group. I don't know if I'm still doing this all these years later, if not for people like you, Jameer, Tony Battie, Keon Dooling, and of course, Grant Hill. He's the first NBA player who ever called me my name back to me, which I will never forget. Can you just talk about that group a little bit and what you learned from guys like Jameer and specifically Grant, just as far as being a teammate? Now, the leadership lessons that I'm sure you brought into heading up the Puerto Rican national team.
Speaking about Grant, I saw him and we were able to set up a game with USA in Vegas this summer. So I saw him there. He's part of the USA basketball now. And it was great seeing him. He was always just a great leader, always very positive, very soft-spoken all the time. He knew to calm you down in moments of adversity, which I like. But it was just a fun group. I think, Dwight in itself, him and Jameer, he kept the group always laughing and doing little jokes here and there. You know how they were. Keon was kind of like a jokester too, but he was serious when we needed to be serious. But T was our OG, Stacey Augman was our OG. So we had a great balance on that team, and me coming in, I was just trying to fit in. I think when I came in, I played one game with Steve Francis. That was the only game, I think it was in Cleveland, that we played together. And then I think Orlando kind of waived them or something. But I knew I know we were trying to fight, we were fighting, trying to, stay afloat and trying to make it the playoffs. And I think we missed by a couple of games that year. But we had a good run that last part of the year. But I enjoyed it. I was just happy to be in Orlando, to be honest with you. When there was rumors about me being traded, I met right away with Joe Dumars in Detroit, and I told him, look, I don't want to leave, but if you're going to trade me anywhere, please let it be Orlando. And
is that right? Is that right? You asked for that?
Oh, yeah.
That cool?
Oh, yes. Yeah, there were rumors because remember Darko Milicic.
Yes.
He wasn't happy, in Detroit, and they weren't happy with him either. So they were trying to move him. And there was a period of like 2 weeks where it was, strongly, they were considering trading him. And there was rumors that I was part of that package with Darko. So, and I had a great relationship with Joe. And I said, Joe, can we talk for a second? So we went to his office. I said, look, because I didn't want it to sound like I wanted to leave, right. Detroit was a great group too, and we had just gone to the finals too the year before. And I told him there's a lot of rumors. I don't want to leave, and I hear that I'm being, chopped around with Darko. I said, all I ask is that if you trade me, please trade me to Orlando. I want to be close to home. I feel like I'm home there, every time I go, the flags, this and that, community. And he took his glasses off in his office. I remember it was like yesterday. He didn't answer right away. So he's quiet. He looks at me and he takes his glasses off and he says, look at me. I'm like, okay. And he's like, I give you my word. If you're not here with me, you're going to be in Orlando.
Wow,
if
is
that
that
happens,
right?
if that deal goes through. I was like, okay. And then I think we went to All-Star Weekend. That's when we got traded, I remember. And he called me and said, Carlos, I know we spoke a week ago. Unfortunately, I had to make the trade, blah, blah, blah. But I give you my word, you're going to go to Orlando. So I was kind of like, I was bummed. But as soon as I hung up, I started like, I was screaming. I was telling my wife, we going to Orlando. So we were truly excited, man. It was an opportunity that I really wanted to be a part of that, that club. And Orlando's always been, home for me. We go there, take the kids to Disney. It's 4 hours from the house. So, I felt like I could fit in, with the guys and the team that you guys had back then. So, and I felt welcome too. We had a mix of veterans and young guys as well. So I felt comfortable right away. I think Deshaun was there too. Deshaun
yes, he was. He came your last year. Yeah. You had Rashard, you had Turk, you had Dwight, Jameer. I mean, you had the start of
But Deshaun Stevenson was there.
Yes, he was. Yep.
He was fun.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He keep you interested.
Yeah,
But George,
and we play together in Utah too. So
that's right.
Right.
There was a lot asked of Carlos with that, because there's a big Puerto Rican community here which fully embraced you, as you mentioned, but you made time. I always marveled at that, because you could have filled your entire day with going visit this person, sign this autograph. But he did it, didn't he? He wanted to be a part of that. I always marvel at how much you embraced that part of it, Carlos, with that community.
I was just grateful. I was grateful for the love. I was thankful for people coming, night in and night out, and supported and brought the flags out. It was just, we started having Latin nights. I don't know if you guys had that before.
We did not.
We did not.
I think Joey was a big part of that as well.
He was.
Ruben, Carlos Velez too. They were a great group. You guys had a great group that really supported me and made sure that I was out there in the community showing love too. And I think that was a great part of that energy that I brought when I went to Orlando, because of the community that was behind our team. So I was just grateful, man. I was in a place where I always wanted to be. So, and I expected that, and it happened, and it came through. Yeah. So I was in awe with everything.
Well, I remember when we traded for Carlos, we had, I knew we had a big Latin community in Central Florida, but, it didn't really touch us until we got you. And I remember immediately when the trade came, Linda Landman Gonzalez was on our staff, and Joey Colon, and they immediately came to Joel and Trish and I and just said, listen, like this is going to open up a whole new world for you guys. Yep. And we're kind of looking at her and like, nah, come on. Like, it can't, like we had Shaquille O'Neal, Penny, like we're good. Like
yeah.
And then it was like this whole, and even now we have a Hispanic media list that we still use to this day, to 2023, that we didn't have before. We really didn't. And I kind of trace it all back to you coming, Los, to Orlando.
No, that was beautiful, man. That was beautiful. I mean, I was in shock, but I was expecting people to support our team, but I was in shock with the magnitude of the energy of everybody. We were having reggaeton nights, concerts right after the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it was not like there was like 100 people or 200. It was like 5,000 people out there. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we were producing post-game radio shows during those concerts. I remember it very, very well.
That's right. You're exactly right. You mentioned Brian Hill. Brian Hill was a big fan of yours. He was a big fan of Darko's too. It was something special with that group. I know Darko struggled in Detroit, and I know he wasn't as happy being there, but he was a talented individual, Carlos. Darko was a guy that he accepted his role here. He did what Brian asked of him, and blocking shots, protecting the rim. What do you remember about it? It was the NBA life was hard on Darko. What is your take on his NBA portion of his journey?
I think he was very misunderstood.
Right.
Darko was extremely talented, could pass, could, defend, he could score, he could do anything, he wanted to. And at the same time, I don't know if he was as passionate for the game as other guys. So it kind of maybe rubbed the league the wrong way because he didn't show it, but he loved basketball, but he was just not passionate, like to go out and get extra, training and, get to a city and find a high school gym and go shoot, he wasn't like that. He wasn't as dedicated as you should be when you're in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And that might have rubbed guys and teams the wrong way. And at times it showed in the games. At times you see him playing and he was just disinterested. He looked disinterested. But I think that was part of his personality as well. He was just like that. He was European. He come from a place where, his family probably had to go through war situations in the past and tough situations. And, going into a culture where everybody's dedicated and loved and very passionate about the game is just different, cultural-wise. He was just built different, but he was very misunderstood. I love Darko,
Yes.
I love Darko, and guys on the team could tell you, we love Darko. He was funny in his own way.
Yep.
Carlos, did it ever feel overwhelming the amount of pressure on you from the Puerto Rican community? Just kind of, and even still, I mean, you are you're Mr. Puerto Rican basketball essentially, and there are a lot of people who kind of tie their hopes to you. Does it ever make you sort of want to hide for a day and get a breather?
Yeah, and have you had to pay for a meal since you beat Team USA in 04 in the Olympics? Have you had to pay for anything in Puerto Rico?
Yes, of course.
yes, I do.
I mean, I've got a share of my free meals here and there, but no, I learned young, that I embraced it. My parents, they taught me from a young age. National team was a religion, for a lot of us growing up. I've watched the national team since I was a young kid, and it was always a dream of mine to be a part of that team. But, I think, once I made it to the league, I started getting, recognition. And then once those 2004 Olympics, after that, I think my life changed completely from a marketing standpoint, and trying to move my name with brands in Puerto Rico and internationally that I could, benefit from and grow my brand. It helped me a lot. But after those 2004 Olympics, and then, doing well in the NBA helped my name as well, to be able to open doors, and internationally with the national team opened the doors for me in Europe as well. So I've always embraced that love, and it's a huge responsibility. Obviously, you have to kind of like have your mirror clean, I'm always kind of inspiring the next generation, where when I was a player, and now as a mentor, general manager for the national team, and structuring the federation moving forward for years to come. I always constantly have to deal with new players coming in and out, recruiting, and staying in touch with the guys that are part of the national team now, and just trying to build a structured team and a culture within our federation where guys that were not born and raised in Puerto Rico can understand what it means to represent Puerto Rico and still feel proud of what you're wearing, the uniform. So, but I've embraced it since I was a kid, and I learned and I've grown, understanding the business part of it, and then the human part of it, which is the love from the community and the people. Every time they see you and they want to take a picture, or they want you to, speak about, the years in the NBA and what it means to represent Puerto Rico and here and there. And I learned how to maneuver. I've always had a good, solid team around me, my family and my PR, my wife, and people that keep me grounded as well, which I think is very important. So I've never thought that I'm bigger than the national team, or bigger than Puerto Rico, bigger than, I've always kind of like, move as I'm grateful for the opportunity that the game gave me, and just try to embrace it and carry myself with respect as much as I can.
Carlos, I know we're getting close to the end here, but by the time this drops, we're going to be in Mexico City playing against the Hawks, and we're very excited because you're going to be there. Yeah. What does it mean, as an international kid, what does it mean to have an NBA game in a place like Mexico City or somewhere abroad?
I'm mad. I wish we could have played in Puerto Rico, man.
I know we gotta make that happen.
Me too.
Yes, I know.
I mean, we were able to carry a concerts after games, and we can't bring a game to Puerto Rico,
Against the Pelicans. You don't have Magic Pelicans with Jose Alvarado in Puerto Rico. We can't make that happen.
Jose is one of the guys that I recruited. He plays for our national team as well. So hopefully we can make something happen. But I'm excited. I think globally the game is growing, continues to grow. And in Latin America, Hispanics are very passionate about the game, and just beautiful to see. Especially Orlando. Being that it's in a state where it's a huge Hispanic community. I think having that game in Mexico will help a lot. We'll continue to build the NBA brand worldwide, and I just think it's great, to have those type of games in other countries.
Are you doing the post-game concert, Carlos? Is that
Please?
How much money?
Yeah, there it is. That's a good answer.
When he talks.
Hey, Carlos, last thing, I'm as we're getting ready for this, we're looking back on your career, and you're seeing Vince Carter, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Dwight Howard, Mark Jackson, right? You look at it, people aren't fortunate enough to play with that caliber player throughout their entire career. And also success. You went to an NBA Finals, conference finals. You've won championships overseas. When you think about all of that interaction, right, and all the greats that you've played with, all the success that you've had, how does that help you in your role now? What are some of the biggest takeaways that you have from that experience?
Because he can walk into a meeting and take his resume and just drop it on the table and just go, bam, let's go. Let's chat.
Here's a picture of me subbing out John Stockton for the last time.
Yeah. Why don't you, take 2 hours to read my resume and I'll be back.
Right. Man, I can't complain. I've been extremely blessed and grateful for, I continue to say that because as you mentioned, my last 2 years were in Boston, my last year in the NBA in Boston, where I had Shaq and I had, Paul and KG and Ray Allen, and Miami with those guys. So I think the game has really shown me to be professional at all times, be humble with everyone you meet, a new generation, be a mentor, and with everything that I've learned outside of the court and on the court, I think has helped me grow to see the game from a different perspective, from a business perspective as well. And, it just has opened the doors for me worldwide. I wish my son would love and be as passionate as I was when I was a kid playing basketball. He really hates it.
Right,
but,
right?
Right.
Yeah. And, so that he can actually live and go through the experiences that I went through as a basketball player and loving this game. But I think overall everything from different aspects of the game I've learned, and just to appreciate the life that I have now, being retired. I can look back and say, look, I did this, I did that. Wow, I can't believe it. I'm just truly honored and blessed to be exact.
Well, we're so appreciative of your time, and we're proud of you, Carlos, with all you've done and you continue to do. And we can't wait to see you in Mexico City. And George will back you up on the post-game concert. He'll be ready. Yeah, to go.
I got background vocals for sure. Yep.
And best of luck. Keep up the great work with Team Puerto Rico. We'll be cheering you on. That's fantastic, Carlos. Take care.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
You got it. That'll do it for this edition of Magic Pod Squad. We'll see you next time.